Today, we're going to be talking about the best supplements that actually boost your dopamine. Now, in order for me to explain the best supplements, really we need to look at what helps make dopamine. And there's different neurotransmitter pathways. And obviously, the one we're going to be talking about today is the dopamine pathway. So, to kind of zoom this in a little bit more closer, we got to look at what are the specific supplements are going to help make dopamine. Okay. Now, very first one that I see probably about 80 to 90% of the issue is right here, this area right here. And why this is an issue is because it's frankly, I would want to say it's probably a better marker to diagnose someone with ADHD, even though it's not an official way to diagnose someone with ADHD. But if we see these low, typically someone has ADHD, like pretty much 80 to 90% of the time. And so the first supplement that I usually will recommend is DL-phenylalanine to help with making PA, because ultimately that's what helps make dopamine. Okay, so that's the first one. Like that one should be probably one of the top ones that I probably recommend the most when it comes to helping boosting your dopamine. Now, another one would be tyrosine. So L-tyrosine, because that's the next step right here that helps make L-dopa, then from L-dopa to dopamine. So that's another really good one. Another one would be muconaparines. Now, muconaparines has about quite a bit of actually L-dopa in it. So you can imagine, because it has L-dopa in it, it is going to help make dopamine. So that's another one that sometimes I'll recommend based off of different labs that we do, and if it's something that I would recommend to a patient or client. Now, another one also really is very effective is L-theanine to naturally boosting dopamine. Because it crosses the blood-brain barrier, it does help improve GABA levels, but it also does help improve dopamine. So it's definitely one of my top ones that I recommend a lot. Like probably 90% of the time, I'll probably recommend this to somebody to helping improving dopamine or GABA or serotonin. So definitely one that I highly recommend. Another one is rhodiola. Now, rhodiola, there's a lot of research on this that has shown it does help target and improve dopamine levels, but also helps with norepinephrine and also epinephrine. So that's really a good one to use. And it's kind of like a driver to improve improved dopamine. Now, getting a little bit more in depth here is there is certain cofactors that are absolutely necessary for helping making dopamine. So cofactors that I'm talking about is everything, all these steps in between that are going to help make dopamine. So one of the big ones would be, let me use a different highlighter here, is vitamin D. So vitamin D, I see this as a pretty common problem. People with ADHD, that they'll be deficient in it. And guess what? It's a very important cofactor from going from tyrosine to L-dopa, which, you know, L-dopa is what helps make dopamine. So if you're deficient in vitamin D, this could be a reason why you're having a hard time making enough dopamine as well. Now, another really big one, as far as going down the line of different cofactors, is iron is another really important one, because iron is also right here as a cofactor that helps from tyrosine to L-dopa. So if you're deficient in iron, you will see this as an issue, and this can also help improve dopamine naturally if there's an issue, right? So that's the thing you got to understand about a lot of these different supplements is you got to do investigative work to see if there is a true deficiency with you. And if you want help with this is something that I do. There's a link in the description where you can book a consultation if that's something of interest, you want to work with me directly. But another one that also to keep in mind that I do see as an issue, and that's also something that you want to implement, is probably the biggest one that I see is vitamin B6. And in the activated form, it's known as P5P. So you can see right here, this is why vitamin B6 is so important, especially if you're deficient in it. And this is what you can see a drastic improvement in your dopamine. Because look at here, P5P helps go from phenylethylamine to phenylalanine, helps go from phenylalanine to tyrosine to L-dopa to L-dopa to dopamine. So it literally is every step of the way of helping making dopamine. So if you're low in vitamin B6, you're going to definitely have issues with your dopamine. You will. So it's definitely a great one to test for to see if there's issues going on there. And I see this as a big problem with people with ADHD and their dopamine levels. Another big one is vitamin B3, also known as niacin. Now, it helps right here from dopamine to norepinephrine, but it's really important to have a good balance of dopamine being broken down and making norepinephrine and epinephrine. And so vitamin B3 is another one that people can be deficient in and contribute to dopamine situation. Now, another one is also, where'd it go? Oh, right here, vitamin C. So vitamin C, as you can see from this graph, also is important from going from dopamine to norepinephrine. Now, norepinephrine is also really important for people with ADHD. They tend to be low in dopamine and norepinephrine because they can't manage their stress. It also can impact their focus and motivation as well. So that's definitely one to keep in mind. So vitamin C can also be a culprit of being deficient. We do see that happen quite a bit. And so if we see it low, then we'll, of course, supplement it for it. Now, another big one is SAMe. Now, I want to say it's like really big. I'd say this isn't too often, but it definitely can be an issue. And why SAMe is important is if there is an issue with norepinephrine, which ultimately does impact with dopamine, from breaking it down from epinephrine, then that could be an issue. So that's why we will sometimes supplement SAMe. Okay. Now, another one is zinc. Now, zinc is part of what they call as the BH4. So there's a combination of zinc, vitamin C, and other things that help with this process. And zinc is one of the important vitamins that help with this process. And so you can see BH4 going from phenylalanine to tyrosine to L-DOPA. So definitely that could be an issue. And I do see zinc tend to be deficient with people with ADHD. So definitely would want to check that to see if that could be a culprit. Now, I get this as a lot of supplements. Now, I'm not saying you need to take all these supplements because you don't necessarily would have every single one of these issues. Now, in rare cases, I might, but typically you might have a few of these things, but knowing which one, you got to do investigative work, got to do lab work to do that. That's something that I do with my patients and clients. Like I said, if you're interested, you can book a consultation with me directly. That's in the description below. But sometimes when we're running tests, so this is why it's good, important to do lab work to see, okay, what do you need to be taken specifically as far as supplements? And so like a patient of mine like this, when we see specifically when tyrosine and dopamine are an issue, we can take different supplements that have a couple like combination and where it makes sense. So combination supplements, like when there's a variety of different ingredients in it, don't always work, but if you run testing and you see that it can match up, then it can work. So in this case, it would, where I like using DopaBoost because I see this as a common pattern with people with ADHD where they'll have low tyrosine and also dopamine. And so we'll add this because vitamin B6 typically will be low and obviously has tyrosine in it, has mucunapurines, which helps build dopamine, as I told you about that, and green tea, which is basically L-theanine, which typically I give about 90% of the time anyways. So this is a really great one that I like using as far as one of the best supplements that I use for helping improving dopamine levels. Okay. Now, in other cases, when we'll run a full-on test, sometimes it's not just dopamine that's an issue. So like this patient, clearly low in every category. And so you want to be incorporating a lot of things, but a lot of times there's also issues with like serotonin, also GABA, and several other different things that you need to incorporate because with ADHD, it's not just the dopamine process that's an issue. It can be other different ones. So yeah, I'd like a DopaBoost to help with the dopamine, D-L-phenylalanine, L-theanine, like I've already mentioned for all of these areas. And then when it comes to serotonin, like things like 5-HTP, tryptophan, L-histine, because of those levels being low right here. And then glycine and glutamine, which are important amino acids that help build and modulate a lot of these different neurotransmitters. Okay. So a lot of supplements, but again, you don't need to necessarily be taking all these supplements because now you're just going to be shooting in the dark and you could make things worse. And so this is where really you got to do investigative work. So if you'd like, to get the kind of same results that I get with my patients and clients, I'd love to help you out. But like I said, it requires doing investigative work. So really the best thing is just to text, me the word ADHD help. If you are wanting help from us, me and my team will reach out to you. Now, It is evening time, so we'll get back to you probably the next day. So just text me at this is our business line number. Text, don't call, just text us, and then we'll probably either call or text you back and just see if working with us makes sense. Tell you a little bit more about our information, understand more about your situation, and then making the first steps of booking that consultation. Now, if you want to skip all that, you can definitely just book a consultation right away. Again, that's the description, but this is a way just kind of just for 10, 15 minutes just to kind of discuss to see if doing the next step of booking a consultation makes sense. All right. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for attending. I'll see you guys on the next live stream and I'll see you next one. Thanks. Bye.